Hi, and welcome to Next Meta with Shepard, where today we're going to be talking about the patch 5.11 notes. So these were just released today, and actually these have some pretty big implications attached to them. So to just put it in a nutshell, Shen support, we might see that as a thing. We are definitely going to see Jace return, most likely to the mid lane. We may see some Malphite, and we may see some Shyvana, but we'll see. So just to go down the list here, first, a lot of these changes are minor. A lot of them are just quality of life. They don't really change a champion a whole lot. For example, Aatrox's Bloodwell is okay, but it really doesn't change anything. It doesn't make him any more or less viable than before. Ashe's nerfs are not big enough to really make her unplayable. She's still really, really strong. It just kind of fixes some of the cheesy stuff, like her ranger's focus on her Q no longer destroys turrets instantly, so that's good. Volley still does the same damage at max rank, but it does slightly less early, which doesn't matter because you don't really trade super early as Ashe anyway. Hawkshot has slightly less vision when you shoot it as it travels to the target. None of these things really make her unplayable. These are all still good. Brand had a bug fix on his R, just so if the target's Zanya's, he can still hit someone with his ultimate. And I don't think it makes a huge difference, but because his ultimate is one of the most efficient damage spells in the game, we might see a little bit of Brand. But I doubt it. He's super immobile and has a lot of problems. Other than his ultimate sometimes not hitting the target if they fizzle. Caitlyn. So we are going to see more Caitlyn, 100%. Caitlyn got some massive buffs. Honestly, she might have been a little bit overbuffed here. So her passive headshot now ignores 50% of the target's bonus armor on champions when it hits. That right there is kind of insane. That means Caitlyn can deal damage before she finishes her last whisper. So normally for a Caitlyn to start dealing a lot of DPS, what she needs to do is she needs to finish her Infinity Edge, then she needs to finish her Phantom Dancer, and then she needs to go and finish her last whisper, and then she can fight people. It takes like 3 items, and then even then you kind of want to maybe get a little bit of lifesteal. Maybe you want to get a Bork or a Bloodthirster or something, but so that's a huge amount of gold. It takes like 20-something minutes for Caitlyn to really ramp up. She's only good in the first, 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game, and then she falls off a bit, and then she comes back later. But this change makes her really good after she just finishes her IE. So she's going to be much, much better in the early game and in the mid game. Just wow, that's going to be really huge. The snap trap doesn't really matter. It just standardized the arm time. It's okay. Ace in the hole, it was kind of silly how before you had to cast Ace in the hole when you had guaranteed vision on a target, because if they moved out of vision or walked into a brush or something, then it would cancel it. So that's really just a bug fix, and that is going to make her really, really good. Echo, none of these changes really nerf him too much. He's still really, really strong. It's more clarity than anything. It's a small nerf on his movement speed, but other than that, it's fine. And now we're down to Hecarim. So this is one I kind of need to see in action before I can kind of make a final decision here. But this is a massive change. So what they did is they reduced the scaling, or stacking, I should say, of movement speed when you have Devastating Charge active, and it more actively updates the cycle on Warpath. So you get more AD, or it more accurately says what the bonus AD is. From your movement speed, which means that what Hecarim's used to do is they would get something like Home Guard. They would teleport into a lane or teleport, to flank or whatever, and they would run at people, and if they could hit you within that first second, it would deal full 100% Home Guard bonus movement speed damage in addition to the Devastating Charge. It was absolutely insane. It was bonkers. So this Hecarim who's been building full tank all of a sudden can dump out 2,000 damage on a squishy just out of nowhere. And that's kind of been just really hard to play against. Hecarim has been banned so often just because of his crazy power. So this change makes it so that Devastating Charge now stacks additively with other movement speed bonuses. That means we're not going to see that crazy Home Guard jumping Hecarim teleporting bullshit that we are all too familiar with now. And the Warpath means that the Warpath change, where it updates quicker, means that he's not going to hit as hard when he finally does run into you after that Home Guard TP. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to affect him. He may still be just fine. But I don't know. It may be a little too hard for him now to get from base to lane with even with home guard because devastating charge now stacks additively, so he can't really home guard to lane as quickly as he used to. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But these Hecarim changes could possibly dethrone him as the top lane king. And so next up here is Jace. These changes I actually kind of want to talk about a little bit. Because Jace was already good. Jace already had his sort of niche. He had an awkward lane phase. He had a weird. It's weird because he's all AD. So how do you kind of fit that into a team composition? But his damage has been undeniably amazing for a very long time. I mean, he won worlds. This is an amazing champion. So to see this change on especially his Q, is kind of crazy. So what they did is, instead of saying, okay, you can put points in your R if you want to, and everyone's just like, no, and no one would put ranks in the R, no one would put ranks in the R, right? It kind of said, all right, you're not going to put ranks in the R, we're going to make you put ranks in the R. And now you get it naturally at level 6, levels 11, and level 16. You have to get your transform upgraded now. I think that's kind of funny. But now you get it passively, which is great. And in addition to that, each of your abilities has an extra rank. So this means that you have 6 ranks per ability now. So you can get your Q up to level 6, your W up to level 6, and your E up to level 6. And the weird thing about that is some of them are actually the same at maximum rank. So for example, the W hypercharge when you're in your gun form is exactly the same at rank 6 as it is before this change. So if you have 5 ranks in it on the current live servers before this 5.11 patch, it's going to be just as strong as it will be in the 5.1 patch when you have 6 ranks in the ability. So that kind of makes me go like, I don't know if I want to rank up the W first. But if we look at the Q, Shock Blast, when you're in gun form, actually has 40 increased base damage at its 6th rank. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, 40 damage. Okay, that's all right, whatever. But you have to remember, this is going through the gate. That's going to be increased by 40%. So what we're actually seeing is a 56 damage increase when you shoot it through the gate, and a 40 base damage increase. That is really, really big. That's actually really, really big, because Jace already had really good damage. His poke was already really, really good with Shock Blast. And now we're going to see him do even more damage. They didn't mess with the AD scaling, which was already amazing. They increased the damage on to the skies in hammer form, so that's the Q when you jump on people. They reduced the cooldown on the Q in hammer form. They increased the slow. Everything's pointing to max your Q, deal lots of poke. W max I don't think is going to be a thing anymore. It's not going to be nearly as good, even though the lightning field is slightly better. Hypercharge remains the same at max rank, so there's no real point to put points in the W. And same with Thundering Blow. Thundering Blow is exactly the same at maximum rank as it was before. There's really no change here. Acceleration Gate, 5% faster movement speed at rank 6. Really nothing, to cry home about. There's no reason to max that first. So the big change here is Shock Blast and To the Skies are much better. And he was already really, really good. And now your transform actively ranks up. So you don't even have to put points in it. It's just going to passively get stronger and stronger as you just dump points into Q. And I really think we're going to see some Jace. Jace has always been good, and he just got quite a bit better. The Katarina change is almost unmentionable. The base damage was slightly reduced at lower ranks. AP ratio goes down a bit, which does matter later in the game, but it's nothing really to cry home about. Most of her damage is put on her W, Q, and R, so that's okay. Kha'Zix's isolation on his Q has been reduced, so that it's a little easier to kill targets. I think Kha'Zix also is one of those champions that's always been good. I think he's good right now. It just really matters whether or not he fits into the meta. And right now I don't think he does. There's too many tanks, too many assassins, too many champions that just lock him down, make him useless. So while his damage is still really good, and he still has a place. I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. Now for LeBlanc. LeBlanc is still good. LeBlanc has been broken for a very long time. She's just been really, really, really strong. She has very little counterplay, it feels like, and she just has crazy damage. Um, and to see these changes, so her distortion, missile speed, so as she dashes to the target area, she's a little bit slower. The missile width on her ethereal chains is also a little bit smaller, and it checks to see. So I know a lot of players are familiar with if they've been hit by the chain, it's about to break and root them, oh shit, and then they flash, and it's still stuck on them, and then they're rooted, and that's so frustrating. Well, now it checks twice or 4 times as fast to see whether or not you're outside the tether range, so that shouldn't happen as frequently. And these changes are the same for the mimicked versions of these abilities, and this is good. LeBlanc has been just really frustrating to play against for a very long time. She shuts out a lot of picks because she's so efficient and she's so good at assassinating targets. So we may see a little bit more diversity than there already is in the mid lane, thanks to this LeBlanc nerf. And now Malphite. So Malphite got a change to his Brutal Strikes. Before, what it used to do was you would activate it, and it would give you some bonus AD, it would give you some bonus armor for 6 seconds, and then it would go on cooldown, and that bonus would go away. And that was kind of a problem, because the cooldown was like 14 seconds. It was pretty long, and the bonus armor and bonus AD only lasted about like 6 seconds, and it wasn't even that good. It was okay. You know, you would initiate, you'd activate your Brutal Strikes, you'd mitigate some damage, but it was just not really that great. It never really felt that good to activate. And the AD bonus was pretty small. So I think it just wasn't that great. Often you wouldn't even want to put a rank in that W because it would passively make your attacks cleave, which meant that every time you wanted to last hit a minion, you'd end up pushing your wave because of all the AoE damage. And that was pretty terrible. So Malphites often didn't put points of their Brutal Strikes until like level 12 or 13 or something. So to see this get a facelift is pretty nice. So what they did was Malphite now gains 10 to 30% additional armor. So 10% at rank 1, 30% at rank 5. And you can activate it. And that's passively, by the way. That's really, really good. It's passive. You just always have more armor. And the active effect, Malphite deals basic attacks, bonus damage on his basic attacks. And it's really important here. It's physical damage. So you're dealing bonus physical damage, but it scales with ability power. That's great. They're keeping Malphite as a decently amount of mixed damage, a decent amount of physical and a decent amount of magical damage. Because if this had been changed to magic damage, I'd say Malphite's useless. Because now just a little bit of MR and he can't hurt anybody anymore. Because a lot of his damage comes from Sunfire Cape, comes from his base damages, comes from his ultimate. You know, all of this is magic, and even like Thornmail, stuff like that. So to have him become full magic would actually be really bad. That would make Malphite really crap. Because he can't do that mixed damage. So someone just stacks a little bit of MR, 100 magic resist, Malphite can't hurt them anymore. So to see him still have some physical damage in there is really, really good. So Malphite is another one of those champs, always been pretty good, but this may make him really efficient. We might see some more Malphites. It really depends, but I think this will be really good for Malphite. The Orianna change, I don't think is a big deal. It's just the R's lockout on snapping back is increased. I think that's actually a buff. So if you activate the ultimate and then you walk outside the range and it snaps back to Orianna, I know everyone's had that happen if they've ever played Orianna for a little bit. You know, you activate the ultimate, you walk slightly out of range, and the ball snaps under your head, and then the ult whips. Yeah, I hate that. So this is actually buff for Orianna. Orianna's another one of those heroes, always been really good. We might see more of it, especially with LeBlanc being less useful, because LeBlanc has been just a fantastic counterpick to Orianna for a long time. And to see Orianna get a buff and LeBlanc get a nerf, it looks like they may want Orianna to see some play. Ryze got a bug fix. I know everyone's saying, you know, why isn't Ryze getting nerfed? Why? Please nerf Ryze. And honestly, I think Ryze deserves a little bit of a nerf. On the PvE, they're already looking at just completely wrecking Ryze's W, more or less, so he can't chain it anymore. 24-second base cooldown, so you can only really cast it when you have your passive. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It looks like they're for now just preparing him to be nerfed or changed, because I think everyone can agree he's pretty oppressively strong right now. And moving on to Sejuani, actually, I don't think Sejuani needed this nerf. Flail of the Northern Winds now deals less damage at maximum rank. Um, on the on hit effect. So when you hit someone, it used to deal 10% of their maximum health at max rank. Now it only deals 6%. And she really didn't need this nerf. Sejuani actually has been receiving multiple nerfs across multiple dimensions, really. She's been receiving flat nerfs on her abilities, and even worse, the items she uses have been getting nerfed. So Cinderhulk received actually kind of a stealthy fix. So Cinderhulk used to give 350 HP and give 25% bonus. We knew that, and the passive on it was amazing. Gave a whole bunch of... It was more effective than a Sunfire cape. It was great. But they nerfed it, and they actually kind of stealth nerfed it too, so we'll talk about that in a sec. So first they nerfed the base stats. Everyone knows they reduced the armor or the HP down to 300. They reduced the base damage. They made it more effective against monsters, but less effective against players. They're really trying to make it less useful for top laners, so it wasn't picked up quite as often because it was just so good, such an efficient item. And it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be efficient. For tanks to really work in the jungle, they have to have an item that's really, really gold efficient, so that they can stay, even or so with their lane counterparts. But there was another stealthy kind of nerf here that happened to the Cinderhulk. So the Cinderhulk had this weird math going on behind it, where it would stack recursively with percent scaling. So if I had, that mastery in the defense tree that increases your max HP by 3%, or maximum HP percent increase runes, it would scale recursively with those bonus HPs. So it would give you, you have your base HP and your bonus HP, and then you have your Cinderhulk gives you bonus HP, and then that bonus would be increased by the 3%, which would then be increased by the Cinderhulk, which would then be increased by the 3%, and then be increased by the Cinderhulk. And it had kind of this recursive HP scaling, and you'd end up getting like 50 to 100 HP pretty early on for free out of nowhere, which was great, but it was kind of a bug. And they fixed that. So they fixed that. They reduced the effectiveness of Cinderhulk. They kind of are, I think, over-nerfing Sejuani. I think this is a ham-fisted attempt at changing the meta. This is saying, no, stop playing this champion. We want you guys to try something else. Sejuani's not really fun to watch. Let's pick another hero, please. Please. It's been like 5 patches. Please, can we? So I think we're going to see some different picks and much less Sejuani. I think this was a pretty ham-fisted punch to Sedge. So, yeah, rest in peace. As for Shen, so I'm actually really, really excited about this Shen change. So Shen has been really interesting. Shen has actually received nothing but buffs since patch 3.14. So since Season 3, Shen has received nothing but buffs, which is like, that's pretty rare. And I know a lot of people who have been playing this game for a long time, who are super old school, see Shen and are like, wow, this guy's, garbage. He's been nerfed to hell. No one can play this crappy old hero. But looking at all of these changes, he's actually received quite a number of buffs for a very long time. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. And I'm actually going to talk about the older changes because this is exciting. This is one of my favorite things here. So let's just look at this patch right now. This patch, Shen had a base magic resistance increase. So he has 2.1 more MR. Doesn't seem like a lot, but here's the important bit. His magic resist growth stat was increased to 1.25 per level from 0. So before, he used to not get magic resist per level. This was a big downside to playing Shen. Before, when you were playing Shen in the top lane or something like that, if someone picked Rumble or Vladimir or anything with magic damage, you kind of got screwed because you had no magic scaling. So now he gets a lot of magic resist for free, which is great. And his passive, Key Strike, now activates slightly faster at higher levels. So if you're level 7, it has an 8-second passive timer on it. If you're level 13, 7 seconds. That's okay. I think that's really better for Shens that builds some sort of attack speed. It's not that big of a buff, but it's good. And then Shadow Dash, this one I think is really important. The energy cost is reduced by 5 per level down to 80 energy at rank 5. This is crazily huge. Shen really is gated by energy costs quite a bit. And to see his Shadow Dash drop down to 80 energy is fantastic. It means he can get those. He can basically cast Shadow Dash every single time it's up now. Before, so I'm talking like old school Shen, Season 3, his Shadow Dash actually costed 120 energy. And now it's going to cost 80, which is just amazing. That's huge. It's really, really huge. And what the majority of these changes look like to me is we're not actually going to see Shen in the top lane. We're going to see Shen supporting. Having tanky supports is a huge deal, and Shen is just been getting better and better. If we look at past buffs, they fixed the hitbox at the end of his dash. The Stand United CDR was reduced. It now places Shen between his target and the closest champion. All of these changes make Shen a better support than it does a top laner. And Shen doesn't even really need a whole lot of money to get going. He just needs some HP. All of his stuff scales with HP. So to get Shen support is fantastic. That means he can ultimate across the map at any time without really suffering. If you're going old school top lane Shen and you ult out of your lane, well, shit, you're gonna miss some CS. If your gank doesn't work, then you're stuck on the other side of the map, or you have to blow a TP to get back. It was never really that great of a thing. It was really most powerful in the mid to late game, where you could split in a side lane and then teleport. But now you can just have Shen teleport anywhere at any time. That's huge. And I think we're going to see some more Shen, but I think we're going to see it as support. Alright, so moving on. Shyvana. I have mixed feelings about this champion. I actually really dislike Shyvana as a champion stylistically, but it's really hard to argue with her efficiency. Shyvana is easily one of the most efficient champions when it comes to tanky stats. She gets a ton of tanky stats for free. She has no mana costs, and she deals a lot of base damage. So it's really hard to argue with that, to say, she's bad just because I don't like her or I don't like playing her. But she's always been a huge block of HP and a lot of base damage with no mana for a very long time. And she's actually also seen a lot of buffs recently. So let's take a look at how she's been affected in these patch 5.11 notes. So her W burnout now does an additional damage per auto attack. So if it's active and you punch someone, it deals 25% of the damage it deals per tick. So that's actually not very much. At rank 1, that's only 5 damage, not including AD scaling. It does slightly more if you have bonus AD, but just the base damage is 5 at rank 1, and then 20 at rank 5. That's not a whole lot. It's okay. That's good. It's definitely like a decent amount of damage, especially at max rank. But it's not huge enough to be like, wow, Shyvana, she's back. She's in. But we could see her, and if we do see her, it's going to be as a counter pick. It's going to be into a free lane, something like that, and it's absolutely going to be with either like a Sivir or an Ashe, someone who can engage or boost Shyvana so that she can sit on top of the enemy AD carry and just deal lots of damage and be a big block of HP. So speaking of Sivir, she's next. Sivir has been really, really, really good for a long time just because of her team utility on her ultimate and just decent everything else, and spell shield. She's great. And they're going to go ahead and lower the initial movement speed burst from 2 to 4 to 6 down to 2 to 3 to 4. So it's a pretty big nerf, I think, super late in the game, but Sivir's still going to be good. If that's the only thing they're going to change about her, they want her to see some play, but to be her to be less, I don't know, less completely amazing. And now the final thing, I don't really want to talk about this too much, but Luden's Echo. So Luden's Echo is super situationally strong already, but it was kind of so good that it was being picked up over a lot of other AP items, so they're kind of nerfing it so that instead of getting 20 stacks per spellcast, it's down to 10. So this makes it more useful on champions that spam spells. Not more useful, but more efficient on champions that cast lots of spells than on champions that don't. Before, it was so good that you would basically have Ludens most of the time, no matter what type of caster you were playing. And it really didn't matter if you spammed a whole bunch of spells or if you didn't. You would just always have Ludens up, and it was always good and always efficient. Now it's a little less so. it's a little better on people that chain lots and lots of spells. So that about wraps it up. If you managed to stick around for the whole 25 minutes of this video, thanks for watching. There's more on my channel. I'll be making more videos in the future, and thanks for stopping by.